What is an emergency fund and do you actually need one? Is a much more nuanced and complex answer than I think you would guess and I would have guessed before I found the fundamentals of financial independence. So let's start with an emergency fund, as most people define it, is an amount of money that sits on the sidelines. It sits in a savings account at your big bank, probably earning 0.01% interest, and it just sits there that you could call on it at any given moment. And most personal finance experts say this should be about 6 months worth of expenses, which means if your life costs $50,000 a year, that's $25,000. If you look to the experts, they would say your first financial goal is to just put your head down and save up that $25,000 and just have it sit there. I think there's some piece of good advice there in that you clearly need a savings rate. You need assets, you need wealth, you need investments, you need all of these things. You cannot be living paycheck to paycheck and have a successful financial life. You just can't. It's impossible. So clearly, having savings every single month is your first and foremost goal when it comes to personal finance and your path to financial independence. I don't think most of us need this inert emergency fund that just sits around doing nothing, especially not 6 months worth of your expenses. Now, let's not confuse anything. Clearly, I think you need assets far surpassing 6 months worth of your expenses. And I don't think any type of goal is to stop when you have a net worth of only, in this case, $25,000. That's not the goal here. The goal here ultimately is financial independence. So that means 25 times your annual expenses. So in this case, that would be $1.25 million, not just the $25,000 emergency fund that experts would say. But again, taking that step back and saying, okay, I think for anyone who has no money saved up, who has no assets, getting $1,000 saved, $2,000, $5,000, something like that, that will be such a game changer for your life in a positive way that you cannot even comprehend it right now. So absolutely, your first step should be get that savings every month, cut some expenses, and increase your income to the point where you have that gap every month where you are saving money. And I agree. I think the first, let's say $5,000 should just go in an emergency fund and should sit there and should help lower your stress levels. Because if you don't have $1,000 saved up, if you have credit card debt and no assets, that is truly a your hair is on fire type emergency scenario, because life is lumpy, as we say, and you're going to get hit with some expense that wouldn't be an emergency to me because I have assets. But if you have no money saved up and you get a flat tire and it's $150, that's an emergency to you if you have nothing saved up. So you need to get to the point where little life is lumpy type scenarios do not cause you any stress at all. Sure, you can be frustrated. Obviously, I'd be frustrated if I got a flat tire, but it wouldn't be a stressful situation for that $150. So that is absolutely the starting point. And I think once you get beyond that, then you start thinking, okay, I have $5,000 saved up. I have $10,000 saved up. What do I actually want to do with this money? And I think it's critical to invest it. And most likely what that will mean is low-cost, broad-based index funds like a total stock market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund or something like that, whatever you decide on. But that is your best route, in my estimation, for maximizing your net worth over a 30 to 50 year period, which is really what we're thinking about here. We're not thinking about short term. So do you want $25,000 in our scenario tied up just sitting there doing nothing, which that $25,000 is going to be the same $25,000 50 years from now? Or do you want it to compound and grow? And I think using the rule of 72, you can estimate that your money would double every 9 years based on an 8% annual growth rate. So 9 years, that $25,000 would be $50,000. Another 9 years later, it would be $100,000, then $200,000 after 27 years, and $400,000 after 36 years. You can see that's what's known as opportunity cost of just having that money sitting around. So I think the ultimate answer is yes, clearly you need money saved up, but do you need it sitting around doing nothing? No, I don't think so. And just as a final thought experiment of this is once you have assets, let's say you have $100,000 net worth, what could actually be an emergency that you would need more than $5,000 or $10,000 in a day's time? Because realistically, worst case scenario, you can put just about everything on a credit card and you get the grace period until the end of that statement plus the amount of days you have to pay it. And in that time, you can sell some assets potentially, transfer the money back to your checking account, and pay off the credit card bill, and it would cost you absolutely nothing. So that's a thought experiment for, oh, what is truly an emergency that I would need cash in under 24 hours? And it's very hard to come up with something that really fits that. Because in this day and age, you can transfer money very, very quickly. So under 3 business days in most cases. Or you can put just about everything on a credit card. So in summary, I want to say assets, savings rate, net worth, these are critical concepts. And you need to do everything you can to maximize them over your path to financial independence and then really your adult life. But do you need an emergency fund of money just sitting around inert? No, you really don't, beyond a certain amount. And just in full disclosure, I keep an extra bit of money, probably about $5,000 extra, sitting in my checking account because it lowers my stress. And I think that's one of the biggest names of the game here is how can you set up a financial life that lowers your stress and happens on autopilot? And I think that's something that helps me sleep at night a little bit better. But some people I know keep $0 extra and they know exactly what's coming in and out of their checking account. And therefore their emergency fund needs to be quite small or virtually non-existent. So as always, personal finance is personal, but it's important to actually think through this instead of just listening to the dogma of the only goal is 6 months of expenses.